going on, everybody? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman. Coming up on today's show, I want to go over 3 free agent targets for our Minnesota Vikings, as I believe a big move still could be coming for Minnesota as they still have money to spend in free agency. So we're going to be talking about Connor Williams, as he is reported to, be back, and he expects to join an NFL team before training camp. Stefon Gilmore and Adori Jackson, 2 corners I could see the Vikings signing as well. And the reason we're talking about this on today's show is the Vikings still have $26.2 million to spend on this year's cap. Will that go to Christian Darrisaw? Will that go to a big-time free agent? All that and more coming up on today's program. But I want to get you guys involved on today's show. If you guys want the Vikings to make just one more big signing, if you guys could give me a SKOL down in the comment section. And hey, for every person that comments SKOL today, I'll reply to you and show you guys some extra love down in there in the comment section. So help me out. Get the SKOLs going down below in the chat. And if you guys want the Vikings to make one more big signing. But coming in from Adam Schefter in regards to Connor Williams, the interior lineman, formerly played for the Cowboys and Dolphins. He said, who is coming off a season-ending knee surgery, expects to be ready for the start of the season and is in discussions with multiple teams about where to play in 2024. He plans to pick up his new team before training camp begins. So could it be the Minnesota Vikings? Well, let's talk about it. So as the Vikings offensive line is shaking out heading into the trading camp, I'm assuming it's going to be Dalton Risner starting out left guard. It could be Blake Brandel, but I'll wait and see how the Vikings coaching staff decides to play that one. But you got Garrett Bradbury, you got Ed Ingram, so I'm mainly focusing in on those 3 guys because Dalton Risner, he's okay. We kind of know what he is right now. Garrett Bradbury, he's okay. He's got a bunch of hills and valleys in his games. It's very inconsistent, and the same with Ed Ingram. Like, he has had so many ups and downs to the start of his NFL career. Like, there would be no doubt Connor Williams would be a significant upgrade at the center or right guard spot. I mean, look at his year he had this past season. Getting another year under his belt playing center for the Miami Dolphins, you see the improvement. Like, his PFF grades going from 78.2 to 86.5. Run block improving as well. Pass blocking improving, and only let up 1 sack from the interior of the offensive line. Connor Williams is the number 1 interior offensive lineman free agent left there on the market. And some more on his PFF grades. Like, he was great this past season, guys, and that's the thing I love the most, is the 90.5 overall run blocking game this past season. We know the Vikings, they have struggled running the football under Kevin O'Connell, and if you can make 2 huge additions of Aaron Jones and Connor Williams, I guarantee you the Vikings' run game will improve next season, no doubt about it. They will average more than 100 rushing yards per game. At least I hope they would, if they would bring in Connor Williams. And listen, I would sign him just to put some heat on Garrett Bradbury. Like, there is no doubt competition matters in the NFL. And if Garrett Bradbury, he is slated to be a starter, he most likely will be the starter. But if you could sign Connor Williams, put some pressure right behind him, and put also pressure on Ed Ingram, it would just make all of those guys better. And plus, Connor Williams is a veteran. He's been around the block. He's moved around positions multiple times, so he would be able to give some, tips and tricks to these guys on the interior for the Vikings O-line, where they just normally are, going to be moving around. But Garrett Bradbury last season, I thought he was okay. Definitely took a step back from where he was in his 2022-23 campaign, where I actually thought he was, played the best football of his career, but allowed 3 sacks, 22 pressures, had 5 penalties, played in 14 games, which allowed him to rack up 874 offensive snaps. And PFF gave Bradbury a grade of 60.9. Now, more on Bradbury and his contract. Like, it's not like he's making a ridiculous amount of money where, like, if you were to bring in a starter in place of him, like, yes, you wouldn't want to be paying your backup, interior offensive lineman $4 or $5 million, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And, in 2024, the $4.65 million, that's not a bad deal for Bradbury, and I don't think that restricts the Vikings from going out and signing a center like Connor Williams. And this is my take on either signing Connor Williams or not. I think this is a make or break year for Garrett Bradbury. Like, we will find out, is he the center of the future for Minnesota, or if we are going to move off him heading into the next offseason. And signing Williams will get the most out of him. Like, there is no doubt in my mind, if Garrett Bradbury had Connor Williams right on his hip, and maybe the Vikings bring him in on a 1-year, $6 million deal, and they say, hey, Garrett Bradbury, you're still the starter, but if Connor Williams outperforms you in training camp, we will give him the starting nod. And honestly, I would probably give the slight edge to Connor Williams being the starter just because he's a better football player right now than Garrett Bradbury. But more on Williams, he is, he can play both guard spots, so I think that's huge. Like, talking about, like, just in case there's, knock on wood, an injury, the Reisner or Brandel or Ed Ingram, the Vikings just have one more guy they can throw in there at the interior of their offensive line. And it's not just a guy. Like, it is truly one of the best interior offensive linemen in the National Football League and out there on the market. So you guys let me know, would you sign Connor Williams, be crazy, get in that GM bag, put that GM hat on, and give me a Y for yes or an N for no if you would sign Connor Williams with the Vikings remaining $26.2 million. All right, let's talk about Stefon Gilmore here. Hit the cornerback department as, this is still a, I don't want to say a massive, massive need for Minnesota, but there is still a need there, and he was great for the Cowboys this past season. Former Defensive Player of the Year, actually, with the New England Patriots, and he would be a much-needed addition to this group. Like, I think the Vikings are going to keep Blackman, Murphy, Griffin, Evans, and Najee Thompson for sure Adoree Jackson as their 5 corners that they're for sure bringing. But then you got McGlothern, the UDFA, Andrew Booth, former second-round pick. Like, if they, are they, locks to make this roster by any means? No, not at all. And, the Vikings got a lot of young dudes in this cornerback group. Like, even Byron Murphy is still relatively young, and he is the veteran in this group. So, off the field, Stefon Gilmore would be incredibly beneficial. Like, just to give these guys another voice in their ear of just explaining the ins and outs of the NFL. And you take your own job, for example. Like, you look up to guys who have been there, been in the system, been in the, whatever industry you are in, for advice because they have just been through the ups and downs. They know what it takes to be successful. And for a guy like Stefon Gilmore, he knows what it's like to be at the top of his game in the NFL. He won a Defensive Player of the Year at the cornerback position, which was unreal, and he is still incredibly effective. Like, Stefon Gilmore, in my opinion, yes, he is not the same guy that he once was. No doubt about that. But still at 33 years old, he was still very effective this past season. 13 pass breakups, 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, and 68 tackles. And the contract projection I saw floated out there of 1 year of $7.25 million, that's a decent deal. Like, maybe it's a slight overpay for a 1-year contract for a 33-year-old corner, but this guy is still very effective. I mean, his coverage stats this past year were great. In 17 games played, only allowing a 54.9% completion percentage, only giving up 653 yards, and he was targeted a lot this past season with obviously Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs, having great years for the Cowboys. A lot of that is around Stefon Gilmore. And, the PBU's 13, 2 interceptions. Like, it was just absolutely fantastic what he did this past season. Stefon Gilmore is my top free agent target remaining for the Minnesota Vikings for 2 reasons. One, the off-the-field just impact he could bring. You got guys like Mekhi Blackman, Caleb Evans, Adoree Jackson, having a cornerback who recently won a Defensive Player of the Year just to mentor him, I think could be huge. And then also off or on the field, the Vikings still have a need for a true cornerback 1. And I'm not saying Stefon Gilmore is that same guy, but he could just be another piece next to Byron Murphy and Shaq Griffin and really complete this Vikings cornerback room. Now, we got more around Adori Jackson coming up here in a second, but first off, I want to give a huge shout out to the real ones. This is an updated look at our sub battle in June, and look who's number 1. Vikings Now by Chat Sports. Shout out to all the real ones who have hit that sub button so far in June. We're actually up to 590 subs off our video yesterday. So, if you guys want to help me increase my lead and make me look good for my bosses, I would really appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button and lock us in. And we'll talk about Adori Jackson here in a second. But first off, if you guys could, check out this link, chatsports.com/Vikings jersey. Get your J.J. McCarthy jerseys today. Wearing number 9. They are absolutely awesome. And yeah, if you guys want to go be rocking your J.J. McCarthy Vikings jersey, that's the link to do so, chatsports.com/Vikings jersey. So let's talk about another possible signing for Minnesota, Adori Jackson. As he is a super, super talented corner who's dealt with injuries. And, last year was definitely his worst year of his NFL career so far. But actually, Matt Bowen of ESPN listed the Vikings as a perfect fit for Adori Jackson. And this is what he had to say. He said the Vikings drafted cornerback Adoree Jackson out of Oregon in the 4th round of April's draft. He's long at 6'4" and has the physical traits to challenge wide receivers. But there's still a need to add cornerback for an aggressive defense under coordinator Brian Flores that will heat up the pocket. Last season, this is crazy, Minnesota led the NFL with a blitz rate of 49.4%. That combination of zone and man pressure, which fits the aggressive traits and eyes of Adori Jackson. And Adori Jackson is an aggressive cornerback. And you see the games played listed on screen. He has dealt with injuries in every year of his NFL career. He has not yet to play a full season healthy, but he is still extremely, extremely impactful. And he still plays with that swagger that I want out of a defensive back in the NFL. And talk about scheme fit, it would be perfect with Brian Flores. Get up in your space. Don't need safety help over the top. And it's just mano-a-mano. That's where Adori Jackson thrives. And my take on this, I am all in on the Vikings signing another player like Adori Jackson, like Stefon Gilmore, like Connor Williams, but prioritize extending Christian Darrisaw first. That is the number one thing the Vikings need to get done. In terms of big moves that could be coming in for Minnesota, signing 71 to an extension is number one on my list. And Alec Lewis wrote up a sweet piece talking about it. He said Adolfo Mensa has said frequently that extensions after 3 seasons are hard to complete. The team and player have to sort through the 2 remaining seasons of the contract, and there remains significant room for each side to benefit or lose depending on the structure of the deal. The Vikings could also be cautious given Darrisaw's injury history. Suffered 2 concussions in 2022. Ankle and groin injuries have also hampered his availability. Whether Darrisaw inks an extension or not may depend on his willingness to wait. Last year, Jefferson accepted some risk, and he benefited immensely. And if you're the Vikings, I mean, you try to get this done ASAP because, I think Christian Darrisaw is going to have a massive year for Minnesota. I think he's going to turn himself into one of the best left tackles. And, maybe if he has a big-time year, like he's going to be wanting Penei Sewell money where he just got $28 million per season. And, Alec Lewis made this contract projection of 4 years for $87 million. If that's a deal that could get it done right now, I'm running away with it, and I'm doing it immediately. But that's the latest on Darrisaw. Also went over 3 free agents the Vikings could sign in today's show. But if you guys made it to the end, I want to see where all the real ones are at. I told you to type SKOL at the beginning of today's show. But if you guys could also type SKOL to end today's show, I would really appreciate it down in the comments. And also, if you guys want more Vikings content on your Twitter timeline, that's a handle right there, at Pat Sieps. Give me a follow over there, and we'll see you all next time. SKOL Vikes.